gosh, it's so great to be back here, having grown up at the IAB. I think I was on the executive committee, I was on the board, and was great friends with Randall, and now David and Lisa. And it's just fun to be back here because, as you saw with the gap, you know, retail media, this converges of who's on first, who's on second, who's on third. Am I selling to you? Am I buying from you? How do we figure this all out is really interesting. But let's just start with like the obvious, like who's been shopping today? I don't know what I bought this morning, but I'm sure I bought something. This week, yes, thank you, keep your hands up. This month, okay, so you're not alone. You know, if you not only come to this great conference, but also know that in the fall they do this extraordinary brand economy study and summit. The storeless economy has accelerated like close to 300%. I mean, the numbers are staggering, and it's really a quarter of all the shopping in the next few years. And delivery, so convenience, those times are shrinking. I mean, in New York City, you've got to like watch yourself because somebody committed to being there in 4 minutes. But you can buy online, you can pick up in store. That's grown 125%. So those numbers, which are directly from the IAB study, I think are underrepresented because that was in the fall. So those numbers are grown. So for me, I started out as a builder and an operator. I think my first presentation at the IAB, for those old enough here, was Baby Center and Insights are the New Form of Media, and then went into the latest company that I built, Brandless, talking about what does it mean to be a brand in modern times. I've since gone on to teach. I now teach at USC a class called the Community Playbook and Web3 Playbook for Brands and Businesses, and I have the privilege of working with some of these extraordinary new companies. But I'm also a mom. In COVID, like all of you, and we did a lot of cooking. I mean, I have two sons, 20 and 22, and they were home, which was really good at the beginning. And then after 7 meals before 4 p.m., I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I started to research. You know, yes, I need a smart oven. I also need like a chef and a dog walker and a concierge and everything in between. But I wanted to figure out, like, how can I make this better? Because, like, the turnover in this kitchen is not for the industrial scale that seems to be coming through it right now. Crazy. So, of course, you know, I go to Amazon after I read the reviews, and I see the stars, and I want to understand it there. And then I go to social, and I want to see what people are talking about and how's the customer service and all the rest. Because, you know, I'm bringing this thing in, and I think we used it more than the car. So nobody was leaving the house, but, boy, this thing got a run for its money. And the funny part is after we bought it, it's actually asking me to post my photos when I'm done cooking. So talk about a full life cycle of social commerce. My toaster is telling me to post. And occasionally I do because I want people to know that I'm actually doing something 19 times before 4 p.m. But let's go back for a second. Like the general store, the ultimate social commerce, right? Everyone knows you. I mean, it's sort of like Cheers without the alcohol. Although I gotta believe that if you lifted a few floorboards up, you'd probably find that too. So this is how it all started, but then we started to move. And so as we started to move, that little town and that little general store where everyone knows your name started to become strip malls, and people started to move out to the suburbs. And so what were we gonna do? You can't put a bunch of sacks of flour and grain out in these malls. And that's when really CPG started. And so, you know, the big, big giants are coming in the back with their, you know, large pallets, and they're racking and stacking on the shelves. And I know, having spent time at Johnson & Johnson, like that is the mega ship of just getting onto the shelf. Now those companies need to learn to build for a ship, not shelf. And that's changing that whole ecosystem. But then commerce started. And so Amazon actually did only sell books at one time, and it looked like that. But with the rise of e-commerce was the rise of D2C brands. And so wait a second, maybe we don't need to go onto those shelves. Maybe we can just go directly. And we'll build our own communities because we're going to find our people, we're going to nurture our people. But the truth is that D2C brands, when they hit $100 million, which is not insignificant, but if you really want to go somewhere, you gotta go to omni-channel retail. Because so brands that start on their own, now they're moving onto the shelves. Because it's the only way to really grow these businesses, because we know that it's all about where the people are. And so this might be a Black Friday where everyone is, and careful, watch out, but you can also do it online now. So from footfall to clickfall, it's about location, location, location. And so understanding that role and how it all comes together, I mean, yeah, it's going to the metaverse, and that's another thing to explore, but really, where is the traffic? You can go to Charlotte Tilbury in the metaverse and shop with your friend, and it's kind of fun if you haven't done it. If you find all the keys, you get a GWP, so that's really fun. But truthfully, the major place where it's happening is on marketplaces. And so marketplaces is where the traffic is, it's where the engagement is where the discovery is, and it's where social commerce is sitting. And so to have that conversation, I brought today 2 companies and 2 women who are doing extraordinary things. Jenny Gielander, she's the founder, if you haven't heard of Thing Testing, they're one of the largest directories of D2C brands with real people verified reviews. And Rima Bata, who is the CMO of Heyday, a company that is building a house of modern brands that are marketplace first. So if you can join me in welcoming these 2 extraordinary women, we're going to hear more about it.
Thank you.
Thing Testing, what's that? Have a seat.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny, founder of Thing Testing. We're a 2-year-old startup and building a brand discovery and review community for direct-to-consumer brands. I sometimes call the starting point for Thing Testing one of my best mistakes. It was an Instagram account. I was reviewing one product at a time myself while working in VC. We were seeing these amazing brands come to us and pitch their ideas, and I just had a lot of questions. Why does a suitcase company need millions of dollars in funding, and has anyone tried these products? So that's what I started doing. You couldn't do that alone, I realized pretty quickly. So in March 2020, we launched the first version of the site, thingtesting.com, and no longer was I reviewing these products alone. We built first a directory, so essentially just an umbrella to get all these amazing direct-to-consumer brands under one roof so that you could find them, and then categorize them. So seeing what are all the different cookware brands in the direct-to-consumer space, what are all the different hair care brands in the direct-to-consumer space. And an interesting and really important feature that we then added was the reviews. So this we launched 6 months ago. We've, through the years, fostered this incredible community of reviewers on Thing Testing. They've gotten content, learned about what's new in the space, and I think they've really showed up. We have tens of thousands of reviews on the platform now, which is awesome to see. And the purpose is really being that we can be an unbiased destination for these reviews, because this is missing in the space. An important thing to mention here too, that I love the model of direct-to-consumer, but the reviews on their own sites are often cherry-picked. So we aspire to be a third-party, unbiased destination for those reviews.
So in a way, isn't it like Glassdoor for brands?
Glassdoor for brands, yeah. I can jump to the last slide, sort of exactly showing this point that Rotten Tomatoes for brands is what I also use sometimes, or honestly, consumer reports for a new generation. You find a brand on Instagram, maybe. You go through, or the oven that Tina mentioned. You could come to Thing Testing and read a review on that product. You could look up the other ovens that exist in that space and ultimately purchase the one that is most aspiring to you. So,
but you don't take any affiliate fees?
No, nothing just yet. So we're very much so looking at the sort of other third-party review platforms out there and how they're monetizing G2, Glassdoor, et cetera, and that's B2B. So right now we have a freemium model where essentially the brands can come in and claim their pages and update the information. Over half of the brands have done that on the platform, so we're definitely seeing a high uptick and interest in that engagement already. But that's for the future.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, having had Gap talk about them being now a media platform, and having media platforms who are transacting commerce, you're sort of the last bastion of like consumer reports for the new generation of shoppers, because you're totally unbiased, and it's clean, and it's being reviewed both by your editors as well as verified real people. So verification, I think, makes a big difference as well.
For sure, yeah. We exist to help people shop better online.
Cool. So with that, now that we've seen sort of a directory of new brands and all these new brands that are emerging, where are they being launched? How are you thinking about building that next consumer products company? And why is Heyday disrupting this space in new and different ways?
Great. Thanks, Tina, and nice, Jenny. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Rima Bhatta. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Heyday, and I'm really excited to be here to talk more about how Heyday is building the next generation consumer products company. So as Tina very eloquently outlined for us, location is key to success. Why do we believe that social commerce is a location worth investing in now? So for one thing, if you think about, and we heard a little bit about from the Gap, about the closed loop customer journey. Social commerce platforms of today are getting us one step closer to a closed loop customer journey, all the way from discovery to checkout. What we have found at Heyday is that platforms that enable community features, it's exactly like what Jenny's outlining, reviews, ratings, rich product descriptions, and also powered by seamless commerce engines are a key first step to launching the next generation of household brands. And so we believe that Amazon and other marketplaces are the social commerce platforms and locations to be investing in for the future brands. Our strategy is to use Amazon as a launch pad to create durable and accessible household brands, which will make Heyday essentially a house of digital brands and the new age CPG company. I guess you may ask, why do we believe that this is a strategy worth investing in now, and what gives us the confidence that this is going to work? Well, I would like to tackle it with some stats. Let's get into it. Commerce is in the middle of a massive shift in behavior. E-commerce is growing rapidly. We've had a lot of talk about how people are thinking about digitization as it's on top of the mind. And the legacy businesses in this space are all massive companies which market share of anywhere between $50 to $300 billion each. And digital marketplaces are even more disruptive and offer us even a larger opportunity within commerce. And the reason for that, or some of the main reasons for that, the first is scale, right? 60% of e-commerce transactions are having on digital marketplaces today and growing faster than the rest. Like D2C has certain limitations, as Tina mentioned. And then faster product market fit, which is facilitating an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And the whole notion of an entrepreneurial ecosystem is very important. On the one side, this is facilitating a new age of founders, right? Which can launch a product very quickly to a large installed customer base by using product description and brand pages, can get revenue on day one, start getting real-time customer feedback from reviews and ratings, right? Start a dialogue there in Q&A sections, and then use that feedback to iterate and change their product and brand when needed, all the way to massive scale, right? On the other side, you have consumers where this model is giving them access to a wider option of products and services that fit their personal needs and wallet. So it's a win-win for the founders that are creating this brand, and a win for the consumers that are actually the end users for this brand.
So Rima and I were chatting, if you remember when Steve Jobs came onto the stage with an iPhone and he said, it's a phone, it's a music player. He didn't imagine that a few years later, someone would say taxi. But really what they launched with the iPhone was the iOS, which just opened up an entire universe of developers in their basements, in big companies, all around the world to be able to drop new types of apps to be inside of that ecosystem. We don't often think about these marketplace platforms as platforms to actually enable entrepreneurs to do similar things. So the concept, you saw that P&G giant train. They don't need to go through that same process. It's infinite shelf space, and they can launch in these environments and iterate. So incredible entrepreneurs who are coming up with disruptive products are using this platform just like developers were in the iOS days to launch, and the discovery is kind of remarkable.
Absolutely. So we are absolutely using Amazon as an operating system for brands, right? So we are we are the next gen consumer products company because we're taking a very different approach to go to market. So as you clearly outlined, CPG back in the day, or the legacy CPG back in the day, had a qualitative approach to insight gathering, leverage retail as the first stop for the go to market, very IP heavy, long product development cycles. Heyday is different, and Amazon is enabling us to be different because we are using a very data-driven approach to product development and product launch. We are using the marketplace as the launch pad for our products and brands. We're able to garner feedback from actual customers very quickly. It's not a survey-based approach. It's like people are buying the products. And then we are also very different from the newly emerging aggregator sector, right? And how so? We are very focused on a few key categories, 3 to be exact: personal care, home and kitchen, and sports and outdoors. And we acquire very few brands in comparison to what the aggregator industry is acquiring today. There are people boasting about acquiring 10 to 30 brands a month. That's just not the way we are building a company. And we are willing to pay a higher premium for the brands that we really want to acquire because we know we are going to do product innovation, brand equity investment, channel diversification. That is really going to enable us to have brands, household brands of the future. And even with the category focus, we are being able to assess a massive market, right? So accessible market, our total addressable market is $3 trillion. And as Tina mentioned, we're starting with the marketplace, right? And we think about a brand life cycle in 3 phases: launch, engage, and initial traction on marketplaces, leverage D2C to get to the $100 million or plus in revenue, right? And then really go omni-channel and be present everywhere, wherever our customers are for the future are.
So this is a big announcement. Heyday hasn't talked at all about what the categories are. You've raised a lot of venture capital, and you've been doing things behind the scenes. But now you're really focusing in differentiator. You've heard about these Amazon aggregators and people who are just buying up a bunch of stuff, and they're buying 20, 30, 40 companies a month. I mean, it's like gobsmacking. But what I really appreciate about your approach is the focus, the discipline to really building a house of modern brands. And you're not only buying them, aren't you also incubating and building them in-house?
That's absolutely right. So the reason and the way we are able to focus on acquiring just fewer brands and within select categories is because our growth is going to come to multiple different ways. Yes, there is the acquisition piece, but there's also product innovation and brand innovation and product launches, and there's organic growth. So we're not just simply acquiring brands to acquire revenue and EBITDA, which is fine for those who are doing it, right? Our approach is when we acquire a brand, when a brand becomes part of the Heyday portfolio, we fundamentally believe that we can 10x the value of that brand. That is through investment in brand equity building, channel expansion, and product development. And that's how we're able to be different.
So in thinking through that, how are you thinking about sort of when you incubate, when does something then graduate to be able to be an omni-channel brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our online communities give us the insight that is needed to recognize when a product and a brand is ready to graduate. If you look at the numbers approach, we look at like a market share, right? So if you get to 10 to 15 market share within a particular category on a marketplace, which is Amazon for us, that's when we realize that the brand is ready for a DTC presence, right? That's not to say that a brand cannot have a website before that, but when I say DTC presence, it's essentially having the storefront, but also really strong commerce engine supported behind that. And then, we look for, again, market share numbers as well as feedback from our customers. We've had certain brands where, really famous retailers, Target, has reached out to us for certain brands that we have, right? Because they see that there's potential in those products and their brands, and they want to host it on shelf. So that's how we approach it.
Yeah, I think the data-driven approach tied to the real consumer experience, tied to sort of how are these new brands emerging and where are they emerging from. But I also think it's interesting to think of a platform within a platform, because talk a little bit about what's required if you're going to take a tech approach in a company like Heyday on an Amazon platform. The 2 most hated words right now are supply chain, but really building out a team that can handle supply chain, technology, optimization, customer support, Amazon Health, like all of that. It's a new way of building a retailer, right? Because it's a retailer inside of a retailer. And we know that people are scrambling to try and figure out how to do this, but you're doing it natively.
Yeah. So I think I'll take a little bit of your Steve Jobs operating system example. Amazon is the operating system for us, but brands, modern brands, I can think of, rideshare, Uber as an example, was built on the operating system, but they had capabilities that they invested in them being unique to the market that they were serving, right? So that's just one example of it. For us specifically, as we think about our approach on the products and services, products that we are selling on Amazon, Heyday as a platform offers a suite of services to our founders that decide to be a part of our community, as well as for the founders that continue to launch products with us. And that is centers of excellence around marketing, which is a function that I oversee, right? That starts all the way from our design studio, customer experience, or anything that touches the customer, right? Performance marketing, re-engagement. I know Gap talked a lot about customer loyalty. That's very important. It's not just important from harnessing first-party data, but also making sure that we use that as a mechanism to tell the brand story over a longer period of time. And then supply chain and operations, that's been, we have a really strong partnership with MIT, where we are leveraging talent from there to be able to create sort of the next generation of demand forecasting models that are so essential to sort of the supply chain complexity that we see today. Tech is a really core capability, which again, early stage founders within individual companies aren't able to invest in. So when we talk about graduation from the Amazon platform to D2C, there's a suite of services and capabilities that need to be built and facilitated. And we are investing in those tech resources so that our brands can leverage that when they're ready to tap into that capability and scale.
So that's the iceberg. We've seen under the water what really happens. You go in and you see a product, but you don't realize all the things that are happening both on the platform and behind the platform. And when it comes to thing testing and thinking about being that glass door or that consumer reviews for the new consumer, how are you building that community and how are you scaling these reviews? Because I know that people really want to hear, but it's a community unto itself. We talked about, Jenny came into my class on Monday night and we were sort of hacking community scale, and we talked about how Wikipedia, are micro communities of people who own pages, and there's a community in Germany that trades gummy bears because they get so excited when they get so engaged because they want to keep it clean, but they also want to incent people. How are you gamifying this with your community?
Yeah, part of this community has been sort of, I look at them almost as these brand hunters. They want to buy better, but they also want to help others buy better, which is the key part to it, because that means they want to share their experiences with others. They are very, very heavy consumers of our content too. So we have a newsletter every Thursday. I recommend subscribing, lands tomorrow morning, with all the newest brands that I've launched during the last weeks, reports on what's out there, trend dives, answering questions like what's new, what's good, what's interesting. And so these community members are very, very heavy users of this content. They buy these things, they try them, and then share their opinions on thing testing. We also obviously think a lot about the Wikipedias out there, the Reddits out there. They've really managed to create communities and incentives around them that makes people want to contribute even more. So karma points, leaderboards, things that really give you the sort of reputation on the platform that you sort of want to have, especially as an early adapter. I think being on the leaderboard in general is sort of it was Tina's idea, so credit to Tina for the leaderboard. But that's the sort of type of community behavior that really lets you shine and lets you help others on the platform.
So I think what we've heard across marketplaces, across D2C, which have huge numbers and huge impact, is at the end of the day, a brand is not what you as a company say about yourself, it's what a friend tells a friend. And so in architecting that narrative, making sure that you're in conversation and you're in community with the people you exist to serve is really the table stakes for modern brands. So I think of it as no longer a go-to-market strategy. I think of it as a go-to-community strategy. How are we going to think about the go-to-community strategy? How are we going to engage the people we exist to serve? And how are we going to be underneath their experience so that they can have the surprise, the delight, and the amplification of why we're here. Because in a world with so many SKUs and so much choice, how do you break out in these places and spaces? And I think it's about the native conversation of what a friend tells a friend. So if you're going to be in that conversation, there's one word that matters, and that word is trust. And so thinking about what trust means in this, exploded world, in a world of marketplaces, in a world of directories, and it's going to come down to the endorsement of real people that are having real conversations. So I think this is just the beginning. Even at this scale, I think that this is just getting started. And so it's such a privilege to bring both of you great ladies here and sharing it with these people and the audience. And so I would say not goodbye, but to be continued.
To be continued.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.